Welcome to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive with Dr. Rebecca Risk. Do you ever feel that even though nothing seems seriously wrong and you pass all the medical tests, that you still feel that your health, pain, and fatigue are completely out of control? It doesn't have to be that way. Listen to the tips and suggestions given on our program today and take back control of your health. Now, here is Dr. Rebecca Risk.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Falling Through the Cracks. Today, I'm speaking with Shirley Weir. She is on a mission to empower women to navigate perimenopause and menopause with confidence and ease. She is the founder of MenopauseChicks.com and its popular private online community. And she recently published her first book, Mokita, which reached #1 on Amazon.ca in the Women's Health in October 2018. Shirley, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rebecca.
So what inspired you to put this book together?
Oh, my goodness. Well, the whole Menopause Chicks journey and the journey to publishing Mokita was inspired by my own experience. When I was 39, I was probably 39 when I started to experience changes that I knew absolutely nothing about. And they ebbed and flowed for a couple of years. And by the time I was 41, I turned to Dr. Google and was very frustrated with what I found there. There was lots of confusing and conflicting information, and even my own visit to my GP was frustrating as well. I thought it was going to be sort of this enlightening conversation, and I ended up walking out thinking either it was all in my head or that I was all alone. And I really didn't have a community or a place to go for trustworthy information. And so I created it.
Well, I love that you did. I think, I did a few shows last year on women's health, and I'm very aware that there's gaps in our healthcare and in the knowledge that we have. And it brought forward knowing how much there is a gap in women's health. A lot of studies are done on white men, and so we're kind of left in the lurch and told that what we're experiencing is normal. And I always correct people and tell them what you're experiencing is common, but it's not necessarily normal and what you're supposed to be going through.
Oh, I just got goosebumps because that is my mantra. I don't use the word normal. For that reason, it's better to say it's common, but the other reason is that if you ever tell a woman that it's normal or that it's just part of being a woman or that she has to suck it up, she's going to put her own health on the back burner rather than, coming forward and saying, I think, I'm getting some taps here. There's some things I should pay attention to. So I never tell anyone that what they're experiencing is, quote, normal. But it is common. You're absolutely right.
I have this vision that came from one of the books. I think it was by Maya Dusenberry, and she said there's these online communities, and I think yours is probably in there, where women are afraid to come forward with how they're feeling, and they can't get help, and they're afraid of losing their partners, and they're afraid that their pain is in the way of their relationship and their job and their life, and they're frustrated, and this completely resonates with me all the time, because I don't think that that's the way it's supposed to be. I think if somebody's in pain and they're uncomfortable or whatever is going on, they should be taken seriously. And more often than not, especially menopause or women's health problems aren't treated that way. Pain is normal through your menstrual cycle, or you're supposed to experience that. And what we don't understand is we're not supposed to experience most of what we do for most of our lives.
It's so true. And the 4 words that I type the most in the Menopause Chicks community are, you are not alone. And what I've found is, after thousands of conversations, I've found that first and foremost, women need to be validated. They need sort of that permission slip that says, hey, you're not alone, and there are solutions. In many cases, there are easy solutions so that you can enjoy quality of life. But the first thing that we have to do is to make sure that women understand that they deserve the quality of life, and they almost literally need to be handed a permission slip that says, you're not this isn't a synonym for suffering, right? This is an opportunity for you to take care of yourself before you can take care of others, and to invest in your health, whether you're in midlife, whether you're 35 or 45 or 55 or 65, it's never too early or too late to invest in your health, because we're all kind of, shooting for that 100, the 100th birthday as our finish line. So what we do now is really important as an investment for how we're going to get there.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, really, I think the quantity of life isn't as important as the quantity. And most people spend the last decade of their life sick and uncomfortable, and there's so much that we can do about it, which is why I do this show, we have more power over our health than we think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So can you tell us what the title of your book means, Mokita?
I'm sure. So Mokita is a word from Papua New Guinea, the Kavila tribe to be exact, and it means the truth we all know but choose not to speak of. And so I find in North America, most of us refer to that as the elephant in the room. And menopause is certainly, in my personal experience and a lot of the circles that I've been since I started Menopause Chicks even, menopause is very much the elephant in the room. We all know that it's coming, but even, when I launched Menopause Chicks, I had close girlfriends that were shoving their hands in my face, like, in the shape of a stop sign, saying, "Whoa, Shirley, I'm not there yet. Don't post anything on my Facebook page. I don't want to talk about it." And that's when I knew that I think I had gotten onto something. There's a topic here that really needs to be brought out of the closet and discussed. The earlier, the better. And I don't know about you, Rebecca, but I do have 2 children, and was passionate about making sure that they knew what changes they could expect going into puberty. I would never leave them sort of like, oh, surprise, right? And so, but why do women do that to themselves? There are women waking up in their mid-40s or early 50s, and they're surprised by the changes that are coming. So I really, I discovered the word Mokita. I was really inspired by the story from the Kavila tribe, because they actually measure the health of their community based on the number of Mokitas that they have. So they're measuring the health of the community based on the number of those things that they need to talk about, that they need to bring out to the center of the community and say, how healthy are we? We need to talk about this.
Well, we are definitely, we don't like to talk about any of this. I know my mom tried to change that for me, but her parents didn't talk about anything. So there was this huge gap on knowledge on that end. She didn't know how old her mom was when she went through menopause. She didn't know what had happened. And so she changed that for me, and she was very open about everything. But, at the same time, I notice, especially because I'm okay with talking about everything, that there is gaps. And, even among just girlfriends, those conversations don't happen. So we're left going, is what I'm experiencing normal? And who do I talk about this? Because my doctor says I'm okay, but I don't feel okay.
And it's complex. It crosses over. Like, I wrote a book on perimenopause and menopause, but it crosses over into other Mokitas, such as, personally, it crossed over into my marriage, my money, my mental health, right? So there's all of these things that are really Mokitas in our society, and not talking about it keeps us from getting informed and keeps us from being prepared for the changes that are going to happen.
Well, and I think this is why you started that online community, so that people could feel comfortable in a safe place to talk about it, and they could have those conversations with someone going through the same thing that could help guide them with their own experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so from other communities as well, I feel like this is where we are getting our information. Sometimes it also feels like our doctors are lacking, the knowledge of what to do and what's normal. And when somebody's going through menopause, I tell them, or they think they're going through perimenopause, I tell them it might be important to get some testing done to confirm that, because some symptoms can be something else. And then they go to their doctor and the doctor says, no, you're fine.
Well, so this is a really important conversation to have. We often quickly get to the topic of our doctors. In our community, we'll have women that join the community specifically because they are confused or frustrated based on their last conversation with their doctor. The reality is, for your listeners to kind of maybe have a paradigm shift around this, is that perimenopause and menopause are not ailments or diseases. And our physicians are educated based on understanding how to treat certain body parts or certain ailments or conditions. And so it's confusing because women will go to their doctor thinking that their doctor has all the answers. And the reality is menopause is mentioned like in under an hour when doctors are in medical school learning about the female reproductive system, unless they have invested their own time and money to take additional training and education in women's health. So I always tell women, like, we have to stop going to the hardware store to get milk. We have to understand what the physician or the healthcare professional in front of us has in their toolkit. And it's okay, it's perfectly okay to ask your doctor, do you have experience? Do you have education? Tell me about how you've worked with other women who are trying to navigate perimenopause. It's okay to ask those questions.
Well, it's interesting that, something that happens to 50% of the population is given an hour of training in medical school. And it can be very uncomfortable, and women do need help, or at least sometimes just the education to understand what's happening so they can feel better about it. Right. But that's pretty significant to me that we're not giving the time and energy that we need to women and to the knowledge about our bodies. I think this is why so many women feel like there's a huge gap when they go trying to get help for the chronic conditions or just the normal everyday life that they're going through.
You're absolutely right. And I think, we talk about this, I talk about this sort of thinking about two separate generations. So if a woman is listening to this podcast right now and she's experiencing, she's not experiencing the ultimate in quality of life and wants to have a conversation with her doctor, we coach women and we try to empower them to how to build a midlife health team, and that it's okay to ask those questions and that they deserve to build a health team that's going to be right for them. But then when I think about my daughter, who's going to be 16 this year, I imagine that by the time she reaches midlife, that perhaps that education will have changed, right? We will have evolved, and I look forward to that vision being realized, quite honest.
I certainly hope so. I think it might also be important for us to actually talk about what perimenopause and menopause are.
Sure. So menopause is one day, and that might be news for some people because many of us have grown up thinking menopause is a death sentence or a long phase of life or something that we go through. But actually, menopause is the 12-month anniversary of your final period. And 12 months was actually set arbitrarily. We have to point out that every woman's journey is unique and different. So it might be 8 months for you and it might be 14 months for me. But as a general rule, after you have not had a period for 12 months, you reach menopause. The phase of life leading up to that day is called perimenopause. And again, different for everyone. But as a general, it's quite a large span, but 5 to 15 years of hormone fluctuation defines perimenopause. Now, lots of women will also refer to, I'm not in perimenopause yet because I don't have any symptoms. And symptoms is another word that I try not to use because 20% of women actually sail through perimenopause without any experiences, any negative experiences, and 20% of women do have their worlds rocked upside down by those hormone fluctuations. So as estrogen and progesterone starts to fluctuate, some women will experience things like breast tenderness, changes to their period, quite common. It either becomes shorter, longer, heavier, or lighter. And then there are other experiences that women might notice, such as sleep deprivation or anxiety or changes to their mood or PMS for the first time. And then they reach menopause. And for many women, those experiences will decline or disappear after menopause. And then for some women, they continue through menopause, through postmenopause, which is every day after that anniversary date.
So a lot of that sounds also like everyday life to a lot of women already.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, so not sleeping and being moody and having hormone fluctuations. I mean, for some people, this is, starts at puberty and goes, through their whole life. And at the same time, they're also still getting the same help that the women going through menopause are that we talked about, where it's not taken very seriously. So it's important to know, is there a certain age where this starts to happen, or does that vary as well?
It does vary. As I mentioned, perimenopause can be 5 to 15 years leading up to menopause. The other thing that's really important to note is that the term perimenopause was coined in 19... So you mentioned sort of the discrepancy in women's health research and so on. Like, there is not a ton of research yet on perimenopause. It's pretty new. And even some of our healthcare professionals were educated before perimenopause was even coined. So it's an interesting phenomenon, as you point out, that, women's health and the experiences that we go through right from puberty through our childbearing years and through perimenopause to menopause, it's fascinating that we don't know a ton about it. And the other thing that I would just insert into this particular conversation is that while your hormones might start fluctuating at 35 to or your early 40s, it's a very difficult conversation to have with a woman at that age if she is still having her babies. Mm-hmm. And I found, if you're not done having your children, it's pretty difficult to get women to read a book or listen to a podcast on perimenopause.
Well, yeah, I can understand that. And women are having children later and later. Exactly. So, when we're talking about this starting, mid 40s, and women are starting when they're in their 40s, it might not be something they want to acknowledge at that point.
Absolutely. And and not their fault. I mean, we haven't really educated our society on how to prepare for these life phases, have we?
No, we haven't at all. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk, We're going to pick this up when we get back. We're talking today with Shirley Weir, and we're discussing her book, Mokita. We'll be back shortly.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
The largest syndicated alternative health talk program has come to the Voice America Network. The Dr. Bob Martin Show is the program that will answer your health questions and help you to heal your own body of many different ailments. Each week, you'll hear the answers that Dr. Bob gives to his callers that help them to be their own doctor most of the time. We'll also discuss developments on the healthcare front and what you need to do to keep your body in top form. The Dr. Bob Martin Show airs Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Health and Wellness.
The Voice America Live Events channel is here now to showcase your corporate, individual, or organization's live event. Visit voiceamerica.com/live events to see all of our past live events and find out more. Whether it's a multi-day conference, special speaker, or single-day event, we've got everything to make your event a success. We can do a few hours or a few days. For more information about taking your event to the next level, call Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417 or email info@voiceamerica.com. Again, that's Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417 or send us an email to info@voiceamerica.com. Voice America is where you are and where you want to be. Join us around the globe as we broadcast live from some of the most interesting events available. Don't forget to view all our live events, including on-demand access to past events that you may have missed by visiting voiceamerica.com/live events.
You are listening to Falling Through the Cracks with your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk. To reach the program today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email directly to Dr. Risk. The email address is anantacalgary@gmail.com. Now, back to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today we're talking to Shirley Weir, and we're discussing her book, Mokita. So, Shirley, I know a lot of this started out of your own experience. Do you mind telling us what happened when you went through perimenopause and menopause?
Sure. I think the very first change that I noticed was sore breasts when I was 39. And I thought I was pregnant, although there was no possibility that I could be because my husband had had a vasectomy. And I was like, well, I wasn't prepared for this experience. So that was the first thing that popped into my head. And then it kind of went away. And around the time that I was 41, it came back, but it also came back with some sleep deprivation for the first time in my life and some PMS for the first time in my life, and some anxiety and depression. And I was an entrepreneur. I was running my own business. I had 2 small kids, and I had my aging mother living with us at the time. And I was waking up every day at 3 a.m. And at some point during that phase of life, I remember turning to Dr. Google and being very frustrated with what I found there. I was very confused. The information was conflicting, and I was also really ticked off that there was all these pop-up ads for how to lose my belly fat, because I thought, really, is this how we're talking to women about getting informed and being proactive with their own health? I'm a smart, savvy woman. I like to consume my information online, but it's not about weight, right? It's not about belly fat. It's about my mental health and my physical health and being as informed as I possibly can. So I did go to my doctor at some point. I thought it was, I loved my doctor. She was amazing. She delivered both my kids. And I explained to her, I think I'm experiencing the first signs of menopause. I didn't even know the term perimenopause then. And unfortunately, or fortunately, because it kind of led me down this path, but she offered me birth control pills, sleeping pills, and Prozac as the menu of options that I had. And I wasn't interested in any of those. I just really wanted to take care of myself and to learn about what was happening in my body. So that ignited my own research and led me to developing this community.
Well, for me, this is something that, we all women naturally go through, and to be offered Prozac for a natural process seems a little scary to me. And I know that there's a lot of mental health issues that can come along with the hormone changes, but at the same time, sometimes even the understanding of what's happening can help a lot of that. And for that to be the first go-to is, here's some Prozac and we're just going to cover this all up, is scary to me.
I need to point out that the Menopause Chicks community is, we try to maintain a judgment-free zone. So if you have done your research, if you have been diagnosed with a mental illness, if you believe that antidepressants are going to be what you require, either, as a temporary fix, or you've had the well-informed conversations with your doctor, that's fine. What I'm saying to women is get informed and choose the journey that's right for you. And for me, a birth control pill, sleeping pills, or antidepressants were not on my menu of options.
Well, and you're absolutely right. There is a place for everything, and I say that all the time. I just think that it almost seems like a way that women are often treated, where we don't want to deal with this. So we're gonna, instead of going down the complicated road of figuring out what you need, we're gonna cover up some of the symptoms. And if antidepressants are something you need in that journey, I think that you definitely should. I just think maybe understanding what's happening before you give out a bunch of medication is important. But you do talk about that in your book as well.
Rebecca, I use a lot of car analogies, and the one that really kind of resonated for me is, when the engine light was coming on for me, right? It was like that engine light was flashing on the dash, and I looked at, the option of birth control pills or sleeping pills as someone putting duct tape over that engine light. And I eventually started working with a nurse practitioner who gave me just a ton of education and information and support. And she helped me lift the lid and look at what the root cause was, which was, really, besides the fact that I had fluctuating hormones at the time, I was also burnt out. I'd burned myself out. And it was that raising awareness of how important us, how I eat, move, sleep, and manage stress was going to be to my quality of life.
Well, that's important. I want to talk about that. But first, I want to talk about what is actually happening when we're going through menopause. We all know hormones change. And do we understand exactly what's happening?
Do we understand?
Yeah, with the hormones and what women are experiencing.
Well, it's just such a unique journey. There is no map. There is no roadmap. There's no way to say to a woman, this will happen and then this will happen. And I think that's a really important conversation to have as well, because a lot of the media and marketing and even medical information around perimenopause and menopause, it almost subliminally leads us to think, somebody out there has a magic wand. They have the formula. And there isn't. There's really only your journey. And it's like solving a Rubik's Cube. There's so many facets to it. There's so many sides. So, if you're not taking care of, for example, how you sleep, then that's going to possibly affect your quality of life. And then there's the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, but there's also cortisol. There's your thyroid. There's many women who are low in iron, and the experiences associated with being low in iron cause things like brain fog, and you might be blaming, fluctuating estrogen or progesterone for that brain fog. So it's complex. I'll leave it at that.
Well, it definitely is complex, and what every woman experiences is different as well, because as you said, 20 women sail through it and they're just done, and they go on with their lives, and most women experience something, but it's not always the straight up, I've got hot flashes for a few months and then it's over, or like you said, there can be the depression and brain fog and fatigue, and for you it was obvious hormone fluctuations and the burnout, and we're all different, and what led us up to that point in our lives is different as well.
It's so true. And it's important to point out that, like, just 100 years ago, at the turn of the last century, women didn't live much beyond 50. Like, we are the first generation to reach midlife and have another 50 years to plan for. So, a century ago, women were having their babies when they were, in their late teens, early 20s. Now, as you just, mentioned, we've pushed that timeline ahead 20 years. But there's, going through this phase of life and thriving on the other side of it, it's relatively a new phenomenon.
So you use the word root cause. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that, it's very important for women to work with a health team or a health practitioner to identify what it is that is causing their, quote, symptoms. So many women will come to our community or walk into their physician's office and they'll say, I'm just not feeling myself anymore. Or they might identify with labels such as, mood changes or depression or anxiety, or maybe it's headaches for the first time in their life. And it's important that they have a health team that wants to look for the root cause as opposed to a Band-Aid solution.
So, I mean, most people just assume that the root cause of menopause would be hormone fluctuations and you need hormone replacement therapy and to move on from that. But what you're saying is there's more than that going on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't use the phrase root cause for menopause. I mean, every woman that lives long enough will reach menopause. It's a day on the calendar. And I don't actually say symptoms of perimenopause or symptoms of menopause either, because it's neither an ailment or a disease, but there are, for some women, symptoms of hormone fluctuation or hormone decline.
Okay. And so who do you have on your team? So you said you saw a nurse practitioner. So just to give us an example of what it would look like if you're needing help going through this process, what did you do to become more comfortable?
Yeah, so I met a nurse practitioner who specialized in hormone balance, and then I really reached this age, I guess, if you will, where I was like, I can no longer pour from this empty cup. I need to be taking care of myself. And so I started doing things like going for regular massages. I invited a naturopath onto my team in addition to my doctor, and they work together, which is, I think it's a huge blessing for my health. I met a integrative pharmacist, and he gave me so much information on things that my body might be missing, at this phase of life, especially because I, admitted to being burnt out. And so, the importance of taking, for me, vitamin B, C, D, omega-3s, magnesium, and I'm one of those people, I like to go to the chiropractor, and I also I'm interested in, what yoga and meditation had to offer too. So I kind of built my midlife health team around things and case studies that resonated for me. And I encourage women to do the same for them. You might not be interested in yoga, but you might be interested in some other form of strength building or mindfulness practice, and that's great. Get informed and do what's right for you.
Well, and the big key I got in there, although you didn't use the term in that conversation, but was self-care. So you were burned out, so you also had to take a step back, I'm guessing, and kind of go, okay, what do I need to do for myself so that I can feel better about what's going on and just how you're feeling?
I had to do a lot of self-talk, Rebecca. I had, for probably the first time in my life, I was telling myself, this is important. You're important. Your kids will be fine, but you got to go take care of yourself right now.
Mm-hmm. That's important. I think that's important at any age. We are in a society of go, 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 and we put different stress on our boys and girls, and on each other. But the stress is still there, and we're burning out, and not enjoying our lives. And then if you get to that point where you're going through these changes and you realize it's never been about you, I think that's pretty significant.
Yeah, and it's about, I think, opening up the possibility of paradigm shifts. So I'll tell you one paradigm shift I had. And when I was self-employed. I've run my own marketing company for the last 18 years. And when I first started waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, this sounds so silly now that I admit it, but I told myself I was gifted. I was like, wow, look at you. You're so lucky. You can get up and work. You can work for 3.5 hours before your kids wake up. And then I did that for a long period of time before I hit the wall. And I didn't even realize at the time that it was, problems with my cortisol. And the reason that I was waking up in the middle of the night was because, my adrenals were starting to be tapped and I wasn't taking good care of myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't have my own name at the top of the to-do list. So it's really, for me, it was about having that paradigm shift that I wasn't gifted after all, and that I needed to have a little look in the mirror.
And slow down. And what a great gift you've given your children, because if you're starting to do this for yourself, you're also, just by example, teaching them before they burn out and get to that point where you did, that it is important to take care of yourself.
I hope so.
Yeah. You put on your own life vest first, right?
That's true. It's like an old cliche, but it is so important to emphasize that for women and for everyone.
For everyone, for sure. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking today with Shirley Weir, and we're discussing her book, Mokita. We'll be back shortly.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Take us on the go. It's even easier now. The Voice America Talk Radio Network has a mobile app for iOS, Android, or Amazon Kindle. Visit the Apple App Store, Amazon, or Google Play to download the app powered by Aircast. It's free and no registration is necessary. In minutes, you could be enjoying your favorite Voice America Talk Radio host no matter where you are, in the car, out and about, while traveling, or anytime you can't be close to your computer. Catch up on the archives you've missed or discover new shows on the spot. Search Voice America at your favorite app store.
We're on the pulse of the world with great shows and hosts. The Voice America Health and Wellness channel is also on Twitter. We've got ideas to keep you healthy, breaking health news, and more. Follow us on Twitter at VoiceAM Health. That's at VoiceAM Health.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Falling Through the Cracks with your host, Dr. Rebecca Risk. To reach the program today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email directly to Dr. Risk. The email address is anantacalgary@gmail.com. Now, back to Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today we're talking with Shirley Weir, and we're discussing her book, Mokita. So, Shirley, one thing I think is important to talk about, especially because people haven't talked about menopause and perimenopause for so long, is what are some of the myths that are associated with this stage of life?
There are a lot of myths and misconceptions, Rebecca, and I find that a lot of the conversations I have are around debunking those myths or helping women unlearn those generational labels that we've assigned to menopause. If I say menopause in a room, I can see the thought bubbles go up above people's heads, and they say things like hot, old, tired, bitchy, fat, right? They're all negative labels. Mm-hmm. And it's really important that while some women do suffer, that there are easy solutions. There are ways for them to regain or retain their quality of life. And why not replace those labels with things like smart, wise, beautiful, confident, so that we can actually raise the next generation to a point where they're looking forward to midlife and even wanting to celebrate menopause. So that's, the labels definitely are part of the myths that we need to eradicate, in my opinion. And then, media and marketers have put a lot of images in front of us that are not that appealing. If you Google perimenopause and click on images, I guarantee you right now you're going to see pictures of gray-haired women holding fans. And what that does is it kind of perpetuates this myth that hot flashes are the first sign of menopause, when in reality, the first sign of perimenopause is what we really need to help women get informed about before they reach their late 30s. The things like I mentioned, the breast tenderness or the changes to their period might be, their first signs of perimenopause. And then we have commercials, that say that that incontinence is a foregone conclusion. There are commercials on television that say it's just part of being a woman, that you will pee when you sneeze, cough, or laugh, and that's a myth. We're not meant to pee our pants. And so, it really helps to raise awareness around the importance of strengthening our pelvic floor, and that those experiences, while they might be common, that there are things that we can do to reverse those conditions. Vaginal health, vaginal dryness is something that does not get enough airtime when we talk about this. And I think, the myth is that, women don't want to have sex anymore after menopause or in midlife. And what we want to say is that there's lots of sex in midlife and beyond, but, we need to take care of our vaginal health just like we take care of all of our other body parts. So those are some of the myths. I have a long list.
Well, when you... The conversation about sex, I mean, we could probably do a whole show on this, but there's definitely a huge myth around this where people think women don't want to have sex with their partners. I mean, not only are we hysterical, but we make up headaches and we don't want this. And what I have gathered from doing all these shows and also, reading a lot of groups like yours is that women actually do want to be intimate with their partners. It's just that there is something that is in their way physically that makes it uncomfortable, and their doctor can't help them very much. Vaginal dryness, or if people have a condition where they have pain during sex, or their hormones are fluctuating, so it's not regular or something is happening. But that doesn't mean that we don't want it. It means that we need help, and then the help is lacking.
Absolutely. It's physical and it's emotional. Women need to know that vaginal dryness after menopause, so after you reach that 12 months of no period, it's the one thing that doesn't go away with time. So if you are on a journey where you're like, I've got hot flashes, but I'm doing okay and I'm gonna ride it out, but you experience vaginal dryness, it's a situation that you can't ride out. You are probably going to need some intervention. And whether that intervention is, employing a use it or lose it strategy, which is we need to give women that permission slip to use it or lose it. We need to give women a permission slip to masturbate. We need to give women a permission slip to have the conversation with their partners so that their partners know it's not just them, but it's actually something physical and or emotional going on with their bodies.
Well, which is exactly where we have to start these conversations. But of course, we're all, if we don't talk about this stuff, and a lot of, I know people even are afraid to talk to their partners about what's going on, because I do think that there, for some people, is shame around changes in our bodies and shame around this area, because we have been shamed for it for a very long time just in our society. And so that conversation is, I think, very difficult to have for some people.
It is difficult to have. And, it's funny, when Mokita came out last October, one of the very first questions, and I've got it a lot recently, is women were asking me when I was going to come out with a book for men. And at first I thought, that's a novel idea. And then I was like, this book is for men, right? Like, just hand it to him, because women need to, or men need to, and our partners need to understand the experiences that women are going through as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it is affecting them. It's affecting everybody when we're going through something, as partners. There is, something is shifting and changing, and we need to know how to support each other.
And if we don't talk about it, then if we don't talk about it, our partners will assume that there's something wrong with them. And how many divorces, have been the result of either those assumptions or the lack of conversation. So.
Yeah, exactly. When things are changing, and especially if you're moody and your sex drive is changing, and now you have vaginal dryness, so sex is uncomfortable, and you don't understand what's happening because no one's ever talked about it, that can definitely shift a bit, the dynamic of a relationship, for sure.
But the good news is that now there's podcasts that are addressing like yours.
Exactly.
Addressing these conversations.
Exactly that, and books like yours, because we are not going to be touching half of your book. So, there's way more information out there of what people can do for themselves to, just go through this journey a little easier.
It's quite empowering, actually, once you figure out that, I'm not alone, and there's some easy solutions that I can take. So about 20 years ago, the Women's Health Initiative came out with a quite damning report against hormone replacement therapy, saying that the study that they had been doing showed that women taking hormone therapy were at higher risk for breast cancer, heart disease, and stroke. That made front page news, and it caused a lot of women to stop their hormone therapy abruptly, flush them down the toilet. It stopped doctors from prescribing. And the reality is that once we lifted the hood on that particular conversation, was that the age of the women in the study were significantly older than menopause. So they were in their early 60s. And so women in their early 60s automatically have a higher propensity for things like breast cancer, heart disease, and stroke. So it was really quite a confusing time in this whole conversation, because doctors then said things like they didn't believe in hormone therapy, and women were showing up in doctors' offices now suddenly suffering greatly with things like hot flashes and other experiences, and they weren't being prescribed hormone therapy. So it was, quality of life was being impacted significantly. I will fast forward to October of 2017, so just a little over a year ago, the North American Menopause Society came out finally with a statement saying that hormone therapy is a very individualized decision. Women who are within 10 years of menopause and under the age of 60 should sit down with their doctor, complete a risk assessment, and for the most part, hormone therapy is safe. And it's really, in my mind, I've been on hormone therapy for over 2 years now. My sister was on hormone therapy early because she reached menopause early, like in her mid-30s. And I believe it's about giving our bodies back what we're missing. Mm-hmm. And creating that balance for, like I said, the second half of our lives. We're the first generation who is reaching this phase of life, and we want to take care of our bone health and our brain health and our heart health going forward. So I work with my own health team. It's a protocol that I've chosen, and it's something that I, review on a regular basis with my healthcare team. And, when it comes time to deploy an exit strategy, which I also encourage women to discuss with their health team, then I will do that. But just to recap, it's a very individualized choice, but the North American Menopause Society deems it as safe as long as a woman is conducting a risk assessment with her health team.
Well, and thank you for explaining that, because I know it has been confusing for a lot of people to know what direction to go in. And I think this is where, those myths and misconceptions come in as well. And I'm very grateful that you have put this book together so that, 50% of the population can help themselves in a process in their lives that is natural.
Yes.
So I know you have this online community as well as this book. How can people get a hold of these or join your community so they can find out more information?
For sure. Our private online community is hosted on Facebook. So it's Menopause Chicks, and you can just send an invitation to join. And we're at menopausechicks.com. And Mokita is available on Amazon as well as Indigo Chapters in Canada. And yes, we look forward to cracking open the conversation and empowering as many women as possible.
Well, thank you so much for being on the forefront for this.
Thank you, Rebecca, for this opportunity.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for joining me today. If anybody listening wants more information on my story or what I went through, you can find that on my blog site at dr-risk.com. We were talking today with Shirley Weir, and her book title was Mokita, and the online community is menopausechicks.com. Thank you so much for listening today. Be sure to make today a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Falling Through the Cracks. Feel alive and thrive. Please join Dr. Rebecca Risk again next Monday at noon Eastern Time and 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. We'll talk more next week.